Hey, what's up, everyone? Welcome back to Franchise Unfiltered. Today, I'm joined by Kurt Landwehr. Kurt is the founder and CEO of OVO Salons. And if you've been in franchising for a while, like I have now, Kurt Landwehr is a little bit of a legend. He's been in franchising for, what did you say, Kurt, over 30 years at this point. I can almost guarantee that anyone here that's ever been to a chain hair care place is probably been to a brand that Kurt has been a part of building. So, anyways, Kurt, thank you for joining me, man. I'm excited to talk about OVO Salons today.
Well, thanks, Wes. It's a pleasure being with you today. Thank you for the opportunity.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, give us kind of just a real quick rundown. What is OVO? Obviously, it's a salon, but
Yeah,
what is kind of the genesis of the OVO model?
yeah, happy to share that with you. And there's some really interesting points of differentiation with the business model that I'm happy to share with your audience. So first of all, OVO stands for Our Very Own, and it's an appropriate name for the brand that we're building because everything that we do at OVO is designed to help stylists be successful. Because we know when stylists succeed, our franchisees will succeed. So that is really the foundation of the business. And what's unique about OVO and what makes it different than other salon brands in the marketplace is that it is a full service hybrid model. And what that means is we've taken the best from the salon suites model and blended it with the best from the independent salon model to create an entirely new franchise business model. And at its core, Wes, is what we do is we are when we talk about being a hybrid model, we talk about starting the ability to start stylists out on a commission basis. And then as they develop their book of business and grow their careers, they are able to transition to a chair rental model and do it all inside the four walls of an OVO salon. What has historically been the case in the salon industry is that salons are either commission salons or they're chair rental salons, but they're one or the other and not both. So
Right.
in commission salons, stylists build their book of business, and if they want to grow in their careers, their only option is to leave and to go into primarily, usually the salon suite environment. So what we're doing now is we're allowing stylists really have created a cradle to grave stylist ecosystem that allows them to spend their entire careers inside our salons.
Yeah. Yeah, because it's this it's this kind of conundrum that a lot of stylists find themselves in, especially as they're getting started, to come in immediately to a chair rental model. If you don't have your book of business yet, you've got that fixed expense that they would basically be coming out of pocket to cover. So most opt for the commission model, which is they're given a percentage of what they bring in, but they're able to kind of cash flow that expense. But as stylists build their book of business and become more successful, they're going to want to gravitate away from that commission model because they will get to a point where the flat fee rental model, they're keeping more money, right? But
Yeah.
it can be a hard thing for them to navigate in the beginning. And so you're offering both of these options. And that's also very different from the viewpoint of the business owner as well, right?
Yeah, very much so. There's some real advantages to the owner of the business with this model, and I'll get to those in just a second. The other thing, just want to finish the thought on the uniqueness of our model. The other thing that makes OVO unique is that we do all of this in what we call a fully supported salon. So we have a staff front desk, we have towel service, beverage service, cleaning service, full assortment of retail products, everything that a stylist needs to succeed. And that makes it different than the salon suites as well. And then, of course, we do it at a fraction of the investment. Now, to answer your question about the benefits from a franchisee perspective and ownership perspective, absolutely. Because what happens in our model is the commissioned stylists are more profitable for a franchisee than having just chair rental stylists.
Right.
So in the early days, in our salons, we anticipate that our franchisees will have predominantly chair rental stylists, or excuse me, predominantly commissioned stylists, because that will allow them to attract more stylists to the business, cast a wider net, and as a result of that, drive more revenue and profitability, get to break even faster, and everything that comes along with that more profitable stylist. And then as the business matures, stylists will slowly start to transition to the chair rental model, and they might choose to give up some margin for ease of operation.
Right.
So there's pros and cons to both, but I like the fact that in the early days when franchisees are trying to get to break even as quickly as possible, they're able to get there faster because of they can dial up the commission side of the business and dial down the chair rental side. And we've seen that in our new franchise location in Nashville, where that absolutely has been the case. We have a salon that has been open 5 months in Nashville. They have a 50-50 split right now between commission stylists and chair rental stylists, and that has really helped that business perform well in the early months.
Yeah, it makes it easier to fill the chairs up, right? Because I think you said it. You're able to cast a wider net, and if you compare that to the salon suite model, which has become very popular in franchising over the last 10 to 15 years, but that's a strictly rental model, right? You're basically a landlord as the franchise owner in that type of a business, and so it's a lot more similar to a real estate investment where you're going to have a capped amount of income per location that you own. So I think that's going to be really, really exciting for people looking at OVO, is the fact that you do have different revenue models, and the franchise owner is going to have levers that they can pull on based on where they're at in the evolution of their business. We'll get right back to the episode in just a minute, but if you've been considering business ownership, if you're already a business owner looking to expand and you're curious about franchising, I'd love to connect with you, answer any initial questions that you have, talk about a specific franchise, and detail the exact process that I use and have taken hundreds of people through to help them understand franchise ownership, find the right franchise for them, and conduct the necessary due diligence. Click the link in the show notes if you'd like to schedule a free, no obligation strategy call. I look forward to talking with you. And now back to the episode. Can you, for the audience listening that may not, be as familiar with just kind of the overall landscape of the hair care industry, can you kind of walk us through like what are the different models out there? As I mentioned earlier, you've been in franchising for over 30 years at this point. You've worked pretty extensively in the hair care space within franchising. First of all, just kind of give us a quick rundown. Like, what are some of the different brands you've worked with just in the hair care space? And then if you could kind of take the audience through, like, what are the different business models that they're going to see in hair care?
Yeah, happy to do that. I'm going to date myself a little bit, but sure, let me take a swing at it. First of all, if you look at the hair care industry as a continuum, okay, on one end of the continuum, let's call it the left side of the continuum, you've got very well-established value brands in the franchise salon industry. Great Clips, Supercuts, Sports Clips, Fantastic Sam's. I mean, the list just goes on and on and on. And I was a big part of helping many of those brands grow in the early days.
Yeah.
Then, as far as you can see on the other side of the continuum, let's call it the right-hand side, you've got the franchise salon suites that you just mentioned. And that's a well-worn path and a very mature, well-established segment of the industry today. What we're doing at OVO is we are taking advantage of what we call the massive middle of the market. Mm-hmm. This big chunk in the middle that is still controlled by full-service independent salons. And that is the segment of the market that we're going after with OVO. Okay. Today, that's about 60% of the market share, primarily women in upper income households frequent these full service salons. So we are bringing the principles of franchising to the relationship to basically go after this massive middle segment of the market.
Yeah, which is super fragmented.
Yeah.
On the left hand side of your continuum with some of the value brands, not nearly as fragmented, and same thing with salon suites. You have some of that, but yeah, this middle section has just been, it's nothing but independence
Yeah.
basically.
Yeah, exactly. And the value brands have done a great job carving out a successful niche for themselves. So have the salon suites, but those are pretty small pieces of the overall pie
Yeah,
in the hair care industry.
yeah,
And so we are really excited about this massive middle that is completely fragmented, completely controlled today by independent operators. Primarily, those salons are owned by licensed cosmetologists,
right.
and they're working in chair one in their salon. So they're not thinking about building businesses and building brands. They're just trying to get through another day.
Yeah.
Um, so that's a important distinction to understand in this massive middle segment that we talk about.
So that leads me to something I wanted to have you speak to, which is, you mentioned your franchisee in Nashville, which is someone that we both know, and has a background in franchising. But like,
Yeah,
who is your ideal franchise owner? Because um, as you mentioned, you've worked with some of these very large, recognizable brand names in the hair care space. And one thing I know is that the people that bought Great Clips early on were not hairstylists or barbers. They were
yeah.
business people looking for a good business model that they could come in and scale. So kind of walk us through that. For the audience sitting here thinking, okay, kind of makes sense, but what the hell do I know about the hair care business? How could I come in and own a salon business? I'm the furthest thing from a hairstylist.
Yeah, absolutely. So the general mindset out there, Wes, and what makes our work challenging is that most people never imagine getting into the salon industry. None of our franchisees are technical because that's not the skill set required to be successful.
Yeah.
It's a management and leadership skill set, not a technical skill set. So that's the first thing that your audience needs to understand. So we attract franchisees to our business who have good business and financial acumen, strong management and leadership skills. Many are owners of other businesses, and they want to scale and grow their empire, and they're attracted to our ease of operation, low investment level, the built-in demand that comes with the salon industry. Really, the characteristics and attributes of our business model more so than picking up a pair of scissors and cutting hair. I've been doing this for 30 years and I've never had a pair of scissors in my hand. And there are a lot of very successful, well-established franchise salon owners today that don't know the first thing about cutting hair,
Yeah.
but they do know a lot about management and leadership.
That's right. Yeah. Well said. And it's so true. And I think it is probably the hardest part of what we do, is getting people to open their minds to just the different types of businesses that they should consider. And
Yeah,
so much,
can I talk about that for just a
please.
minute?
Yeah.
Okay, because I think it's a really important aspect. Most people think that they need to start a business that is aligned with their either where their expertise is.
Right.
If I'm a chef, I should open a restaurant,
Yeah.
or their hobbies. If I like working out, I should start a gym.
Yeah.
And that's almost always the wrong way to approach it.
Yeah.
What I encourage people to do is to at least with our model, forget about cutting hair and look at the business as a business and see
Yes.
if the characteristics and attributes of the business model align with what you're good at,
Yes.
right? And for us, the transferable skill set in our model, as I mentioned earlier, as these people are coming out of corporate America or own other businesses, is a management and leadership skill set and what we call a heart forward personality.
Yeah.
We're looking for people who love other people, want to manage and lead people, and really have a positive impact on the lives of 20 stylists every time we open a new salon. And
Yeah.
that's what we look for in our evaluation of right fit franchisees.
Yeah, it's so important to look at the model, right? And then also, get a clear understanding of, as you've articulated with OVO specifically, what am I going to have to do as the franchise owner in order to
Mhm.
be successful? And does that role align with my experience, my expertise? Is it something I would enjoy doing? Like, we all know people that got into uh, some sort of a business because the product or the service made a lot of sense. There was a lot of demand for it, only to find out 6 months into it, they're miserable, right?
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
the things they're having to spend the majority of their time on as the business owner are just things that they don't enjoy, right? Look at the lifestyle component of it, right? I mean, you mentioned with OVO, this is the a great model for someone that's got other businesses and maybe other responsibilities that they're juggling. Like, this is probably not the best option for the person that's looking to make a full 180 pivot, out of a corporate job and throw themselves full time into, running a business day in and day out. Right.
Well, yeah, we're, at OVO, we're a multi-unit concept. We're looking for
Yeah.
franchisees who want to scale and open multiple units, 2, 3, 5, 10, whatever the number might be. What we're not is an owner-operated business model. And those are certainly out there, as you
Yeah.
know, right? But that's not what our franchisees are looking for. They don't want to buy themselves jobs. They want to build businesses.
Yeah.
So, and that attracts a lot of people to our business model as well.
Yeah. So given that you don't need someone that's got prior experience in hair care, talk a little bit about the support that someone could expect to get as an OVO franchisee. Um, Obviously, you need real estate. You already mentioned, if we compare this to something like a salon suite model, the build out costs are going to be substantially less here. How are you guys helping franchisees navigate finding the location, managing the build out, and so forth?
Yeah, good question. And before I answer that, I think you hit on a really important point. And one of the unique attributes of our business is, if you compare us against salon suites, we have a stronger revenue model because we're able to dial up the commission revenue side of the business.
Yeah.
And our investment is about 50 to 75% less than a traditional salon suite. So we kind of win in both categories, and we like that aspect for sure. But yeah, let me answer the question about support, onboarding and support. So, OVO as a franchise concept is relatively new, as you know, but what's not new is the business model. I partnered with the founder of OVO, and we just finished our 18th year of operation in Atlanta. So the business is tested, time tested, and true. We know the model works. The only thing that's new about what we're doing is we are now starting to franchise the opportunity. So what I've done, Wes, over the last, quite frankly, year and a half, I've been working on this, is I have been building the infrastructure to support new franchisees in every aspect of the business and bringing on some of the most talented people that I have ever met in my 30 years in the franchising industry and specifically in the salon space. So my partners and I combined have close to 100 years of franchising and salon industry experience, growing some of the most recognizable brands in our industry. And you mentioned some of them: Great Clips, Supercuts, Regis, to name just a few.
Yeah.
So our management team and leadership team have deep expertise in both franchising and the salon industry specifically. So, we've done all the things that you would expect. We have partnered with a commercial real estate firm, a construction management firm. We're using a learning management system called Delight Tree that will enable us to onboard, support, and train new franchisees and their stylists, providing TikTok style educational content on demand through mobile devices. So that would be an example of something that we put together. So really soup to nuts.
Yeah.
And this is what I've spent my entire career doing, is, helping franchisees be successful. So we were, very pleased. The onboarding, the training, the ongoing support. We've got the entire package put together, and we developed that, and tested it with our new salon in Nashville, and has proven our systems and processes have proven to work and be very effective.
Yeah. I really want to drive this home to the audience listening, just how unique something like OVO is, right? Because as you mentioned, it's on paper, it's an emerging brand, right? When you look at
Right.
amount of time you've been franchising, number of franchise locations, it's emerging, which so many people are going to quickly make the assumption that it's emerging, therefore it's a lot riskier, right? This is the best of both worlds, right? You've got a 18-year-old business in Atlanta, right? Which I imagine is a pretty competitive, place for the salon industry, a market like Atlanta.
Oh gosh,
This thing's time tested, it's
absolutely.
proven. And then you've got, some of the most experienced, leaders that have had their hands all over every, almost every major hair care brand you could find in franchising. I mean, that's the best of both worlds. And these types of opportunities don't come along that often. And for anyone out there that's taken time to look at franchises before, that territory availability is a big challenge, especially if you're gravitating towards the more established, more recognized brands. It's very difficult, if not impossible, to find territory available in any major market, and certainly even in some of the smaller markets even. So
Yeah, isn't that the truth?
it's huge. Yeah,
I tell people if you wait for the brand to be a household name in your market,
you're
the
too late.
territories are going to be gone, right? So
Yeah.
the other thing I like to say, Wes, is everybody knows somebody who knew somebody who could have gotten involved in McDonald's in the 1980s, Panera Bread in the 90s,
Yeah,
Orange Theory in the 2000s. I mean, those examples are everywhere.
they are.
And, being if you want to take advantage, you got to be a little creative, right? You have to dream big. When I hear emerging, what I hear relative to OVO is a ground floor opportunity.
Yes.
The best territories in your market are still available. I promise you that. They
Yep.
are today. They may not be tomorrow. But yet we have almost a 2-decade track record of success,
Yeah.
and we know the business model works. So we've already, kind of worked out the kinks, so to speak. And now it's just pure upside for our franchisees who are able to recognize this opportunity and get involved early.
Well, and I think it's worth mentioning too, because you talked a little bit about, how long you and your partners have been, building out the infrastructure to make sure this thing is ready to
Yeah.
start bringing in franchisees. I mean, I think I first heard about this from you probably close to 2 years ago.
Yeah, it might have
I
been.
know
Mhm.
you've been, kind of head down behind the scenes working, and now you're finally at a point where, you're ready to kind of step on the gas and start spreading the word. But I think it's also worth mentioning, like in my eyes at least, you've got to be incredibly excited about this because you had some other great things going on that you were a part of that you've kind of stepped away from to focus on this, which tells me if Kurt's this excited about it, and he's had so much experience in franchising and not even just hair care, and I know what you were doing with brand one, and I mean, you guys were rocking and rolling over there. So for you to
Yeah.
kind of make that decision to say, hey, this is going to be my primary focus, to me at least, that speaks volumes.
Yeah, it does kind of tip the hand a little bit, right, about how I feel about this opportunity. And for your audience, I was the founder and am the founder of a franchise development company called Brand One that is very successful today, in large part because of the great work that my partners did on that business. But I consciously chose to leave that business to start OVO. And really, in part, just because I was so excited about the opportunity when I was introduced to this, it was just crying out to be franchised. And we
Yeah.
see such a huge market opportunity in this massive middle of the market that I've talked about, where today it's completely controlled by independent salons.
Yeah.
Um, I tell people that OVO today is where Great Clips was in the late 1980s. Okay. And I know most people don't, may not really understand what that analogy means, but they are kind of the pioneers of the
Yeah.
value segment of the hair care industry. And nobody ever heard of Great Clips in, 1992 when I got involved with them. And today they have 5,000 salons nationwide and completely dominate
Yeah.
that segment of the marketplace. So we hope to be, the next Great Clip, so to speak, relative to the massive middle of the market.
Yeah. Well, it is pretty rare these days to find an industry or a segment of an industry that is as as fragmented as this middle space that you've described where OVO is. I mean, you think about all the different franchises we see and work with. I mean, it's not very often where one comes along and it's like, hey, there's no national brand in this industry yet or in this subset of
Yeah,
it.
this
So,
category. Yeah, and
yeah,
that's a great point. And one of the questions I like to ask people I talk to is, if you're going to start a business, you have to ask an important question: who do you want to compete against? Okay, because every industry has competition. So if you're going to go into the coffee industry, you have to, ask the question: well, how am I going to be successful at capturing market share away from Starbucks? If
right.
you're going to go into the food industry, how am I going to be successful competing against McDonald's and Taco Bell? Those companies are pretty good at what they do, right?
Yeah.
Um, in our segment of the market, when we ask ourselves that question, we really like the answer, because the answer is who our franchisees are going to compete against are independent salons.
Yeah.
It's not
Right.
McDonald's and Starbucks; it's Betty's Beauty Salon and Debbie's Cut and Curl. And so we really like the competitive landscape of this segment of the industry, and that's why I'm so excited. If this was just another discount chain or another Salon Suites, I would would not have gotten involved and been
Yeah.
this excited and made a huge pivot in my career. But man, Wes, there is such a huge opportunity in this segment of the market. It just was too good to pass up.
Yeah. Makes total sense. And I think that's a really good way to kind of paint the picture of what this opportunity is. And, people should really be looking at the competitive landscape. And so I think that's a
Yeah.
big part of what makes this exciting. We'll get right back to the episode, but I wanted to quickly share a free resource with you. If you're curious about franchise ownership and want to learn more about how countless people, including myself, have leveraged franchising as a way to create more freedom for themselves and to take control of their livelihood, I've put together an ebook. It's called Franchise Wealth Creation, and it's the perfect starting point for anyone that's just curious to learn more about this whole franchise thing and how I've helped hundreds of other people navigate all the steps involved in understanding and researching franchising. So click the link in the show notes, fill out a short form. I'll send you the ebook. I think it's a great starting point if you're curious at all about learning more about franchising. All right, let's get back to the episode. Real quick before we wrap this up, just couple kind of nuts and bolts type questions that I imagine listeners may have. So we've already established that compared to a salon suite, this is going to be a lower build out. What size location is ideal? How many square footage are you looking for? What's the ideal number of chairs that an OVO location would have?
Yeah, a good question. Because our salons are open air salons, we can fit more chairs in a smaller space, and dramatically reduce the build out costs. So a prototypical OVO is going to be about 2,400 square feet.
Okay.
And in 2,400 square feet, we can very, very nicely fit anywhere from 18 to 22 stations. And we anticipate the total investment is going to be somewhere on the low end, probably high 300s, and on the high end, maybe the mid to high 500s or low 600s. So,
And for those listening, for comparison, most of the salon suite models out there are 7-figure plus
oh yeah,
investments.
yeah, well into seven
Yeah.
figures today with construction costs. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's just another nice attribute. So not only are the investment costs lower, and the revenue per square foot for us is about 2x salon suites. Our stylists also enjoy operating in an environment where they're building connections in communities and growing their career. There's a lot of energy in our salons, as you can
Yeah, it's the
imagine.
whole thing.
Yeah, it's a whole thing. It's why stylists and customers go there.
My
They're not,
wife and her sister had been going to the same stylist for years,
yeah,
and the
yeah,
lady's husband was in the military, I think, and they had to move.
okay.
I mean, going away, like you would have thought this lady passed away. As sad as everyone was that she's just moving, right? And then it was like a whole. I mean, it was like an interview process for them to figure out, okay, who are we gonna allow to do our hair now that our lady that's been doing it for so long is gone. So
Yeah.
yeah, I imagine the the culture, the environment, right, within a location is going to play a big role in, being able to attract the type of stylist that you want, as well as the clientele that you
Yeah,
want.
and what's neat about our industry in our business model is that the stylists bring their customers because the customers are loyal to the stylist.
Hmm.
So we know if we can attract the stylist to our salons, by default, they'll bring their customers. And you're right. Stylist loyalty in our industry is kind of legendary. I've been married for 29 years, and my wife has been going to the same stylist longer than I've known her. So that's
Yeah,
an
yeah.
example of how loyal people are to their stylists, and it's a great attribute of our business because we're not always out looking for new customers. We retain the customers we have as a result of the relationship they have with their
Yeah,
stylist.
well, that's huge, right? And I mean, I definitely have people from time to time that I work with that they don't want to get into a business where they're going to constantly be having to, market and try to attract new customers, and they definitely don't want to be in the type of business where they're constantly having to sell and convert leads into paying jobs. And so this is really go and recruit 18 to 22 stylists,
Yep.
create a great environment for
Love them
them
up.
to run and build their businesses in. And then you think about, okay, now it's time to go do this a second time and a third time and a fourth time and so forth and so on. So that's worth really understanding, because that can just make such a difference in your day to day as a business owner, right? If you're constantly having to, worry about, do I have enough leads coming in? How's my sales team performing?
Mhm.
Those businesses are out there and you can be very successful in them. My wife and I own businesses that we have to do just that. But, you have a record month and close out the month. You might celebrate one night, but then on the first day of the next month, you're back at zero, baby, and you got to go find the leads to build the business up again.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. You're on the treadmill that it never ends, right?
That's
So,
right.
yeah, I always tell people avoid commoditized businesses. If the only way to differentiate your product or service is through price, that's a race to
Yeah,
the bottom. And
totally.
so,
Yeah.
in our business, it's the exact opposite. It is a relationship-driven business between the stylist and the customer. So we create the environment for the stylist to thrive, and not surprising, their customers stick with them.
Yeah. Kind of final question for me, and then I'd love if there's anything that we didn't touch on that you want to make the audience aware of. But um, is this is this the type of business? Is it going to be better suited in larger, kind of more metro areas? Would this work in a Wilmington, North Carolina, or a Chattanooga, Tennessee, or does it need to be in like an Atlanta, Nashville, Charlotte type of market?
Yeah, good question. Well, I'll jokingly say, Wes, our business is only going to work in markets where people have hair it grows and needs to be cut, right? So,
Fair enough.
as to say, it should work everywhere. But all kidding aside, we are we are a big city concept. We're not looking to go into really small towns. That's not a great opportunity for us. We're looking primarily to develop the top 200 MSAs in the country, where most of your listeners live. But certainly towns of 75 to 100,000 people or more can be great markets for our model.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. Is there anything I did not ask you about that I should have, or anything else that you want to leave the audience with before we wrap this up?
Well, no, not really. I've really enjoyed the conversation. We probably could talk all day about entrepreneurship and franchising. It's such an
100%.
exciting topic for guys like you and I.
Yeah.
So no, I just thank you for the opportunity. Great to visit with you today. Wonderful to have the opportunity to introduce your audience to OVO, and I just appreciate the opportunity.
Well, likewise, appreciate you. I know how busy you are, and love the concept. It's very unique, so I'm glad we were able to kind of bring it to the audience and spotlight some of the many reasons that it is a unique and exciting opportunity. So, Kurt Landwehr, thank you so much. And for those listening, if you're interested in learning more about OVO Salons, reach out to me. We pretty much know at this point in time territory is available, so we don't even have to go through that step of checking territory availability. So if this is one that you'd like to learn more about, reach out and we will get you some more information. But with that, we will leave it here and see you next time. Kurt, thank you so much, man. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.